If you're a landlord or an investor and you have rental properties and you have leases, here's 5 clauses that you're going to want in your lease. Hey guys, Rich Farmer here with KRC Realty Property Management and Mortgage. Today I want to talk about 5 key lease clauses you probably want in your lease agreement. We're pretty good at what we do when it comes to our leases. We use a law firm called Kimball, Tyree and St. John. Giving them a shout out. They renew our leases every year. We actually pay a fee for that, but some of the things that we really have in our leases that we like is, number one would probably be a pet clause. 2 out of 3 tenants are going to come to you and they're going to have a pet. And California law is very specific when it comes to tenants that have care pets. Unfortunately, when it comes to that, you can't deny them. You cannot charge them a security deposit, a pet deposit. And there's a lot of things you can't do when it comes to having a pet at your property. But if someone comes to you and they don't have a pet, you definitely want to have a pet clause. The pet clause allows for, we charge a pet fee. We don't charge a pet security deposit. We charge them a $500 pet fee up front. What we do is we blacklight the carpet moving in. We blacklight the carpet moving out to make sure there's no urine, pet urine on the carpet. Some of the things we ran into early on when we took on property management was we would take a property back, they would have the carpets clean, they looked fantastic, they were great. 3 weeks later, heat of summer, and all of a sudden someone's saying the carpet doesn't smell well, and next thing you know, we would pull up the carpet and we would see some urine in the padding, and we already gave the security deposit back. So what we do is we charge a $500 pet fee, not a deposit, and then we go in there and we blacklight the carpet up front. We do it at the finish line as well, and then we make deductions accordingly if they had a pet or they don't. Another thing we do as part of the pet clause is if they do bring a pet in afterwards, we charge them a pet security deposit. If they move in and they're like, oh, I just adopted a dog and I'm bringing it in, we would go ahead and bring that pet in, and we charge them a pet security deposit, and then we make sure that we send them out an addendum to the lease stating that they have to have the carpets professionally shampooed, they have to have a flea treatment done and all that other good stuff. Or we could just say, you know what, there's no pets allowed in the property. But the last thing a landlord wants is a vacancy. A vacancy is the worst thing you could ever have, right? So the second thing I would have in the lease agreement, I would have a waiver for subordination. What this does is, let's say you have a tenant that falls down the second step. They get hurt. They're not seriously hurt, but they do get hurt, and they file a claim with their renter's insurance that hopefully you maintain, you make them maintain. And the insurance company says, well, are you going to go after the landlord? And the tenant says, no, I fell on my own. And they're like, well, do you mind if we go after him? So it happens, trust me. So what you want to do is you want to have a waiver in place that allows the tenant, that does not allow the tenant to transfer their claim for damages to the insurance company. At that point, you're protected, the tenant's not going after you, and they can't transfer. So you always want to have that waiver in there as well. Next thing I would probably want to make sure I have in my lease is an allow access clause. And what is that? At the finish line, when you're getting ready, a tenant gives you 30-day notice, or you give a tenant 60-day notice. If you don't have an access clause in your lease agreement, you can't show the property for your next tenant. You literally have to wait until the tenant moves out. And you always want to be able to show, whether it's prospective buyers or renters, you always want to be able to have the opportunity to show that property. If you want to list the property for sale, you want to be able to show it. And if you want to list the property for rent, you want to be able to show that as well. One of the things we pride ourselves on is we typically turn a property over within 5 to 7 days. And the way we're able to do that is we have these clauses in our lease that allow us to show a property. We can show the property, and then the tenant moves out on the 1st of the month. Let's say it's the 1st. By the 5th, I got somebody else in there. If you have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, what's the cost of carrying that? You know, how much rent did you lose in a month trying to get a property ready for show and everything else? We want to have that ready to go. So I would definitely have an allow access clause. The other clause I would want, you always want to be on top of it. You never want to go month to month if you don't have to. And the reason why is a lot of tenants that we've found over the years, we always try to place our tenants in June, July, August. That's when we like to have all of our lease agreements. Why? Because that's when most families are moving. That's when most tenants are moving. They want to move in the summer. No one wants to move during the holidays. No one wants to move, Christmas, Thanksgiving. No one wants to do that. And the last thing you want to do is be on a month-to-month lease agreement and have someone give you notice in November or October. And they're like, hey, we're out of here November 1st. And the property sits November, December, January, and you lost 3 months worth of rent. So you always want to try and control the lease agreement, and you want to make sure that you have 1-year leases. Try to do them in those summer months when people are moving, because again, the biggest factor when it comes to ownership of property and a landlord is vacancy loss. That's the killer right there. Obviously, you have a lost rent, and then you also have, that's when all your expenses are made. You want to keep people in the property. You want to keep them happy. You want to communicate with them, but make sure you don't put them on a month-to-month. Try to keep them on that 1-year lease. It could save you some money, especially if you're looking at it October, November, and they're going, hey, we just bought a place, we're out. So you want to do that. The last thing I would put on your lease agreement is you want to make sure that the lease agreement says that each tenant is jointly and severably liable. What does that mean? So what that means is if you have 3 tenants, well, let's say you even have 2. If one tenant moves out and you don't have jointly and severably liable in your contract, they could say, the tenant that's still there could say, well, the other tenant moved out, that falls on her and not on me. And they're absolutely right. What you want to do is you want to make sure that it's jointly and severably liable so that both parties, whether one stays or one leaves, because you have couples, right? You have roommates, they have situations, and one leaves the other one, they're like, I'm out of here. And you need to make sure that whoever is left in that unit is on the hook for everybody. So they are both liable. The other party's still liable, you might have to go after them, but you want to make sure that that's in the lease, because if it's not in the lease, the one tenant could give you written notice, hey, I'm out of here in 30 days, and the other tenant says, well, I can't afford it on my own, but I'm not moving, and then you're kind of on the hook. So make sure you have all 5 of those clauses in there. If you have any questions about these clauses or the best way to write them up, feel free to give us a shout out, subscribe to us. Rich Farmer here at KRC Realty Property Management and Mortgage, and reach out anytime.